Okay, this is an interactive art piece that I've created, illustration, and I guess it falls into the realm of computational art, which is sort of a broad term for computer-generated art, where a computer was involved, whether it was used to create it or it's used to present it. In this case, this everything's used to create it, computer graphics to create it, and obviously a computer to show it. Um, it started off as a illustration, and I will just no, actually, no, it had these windows open. What I initially did was I made an illustration that looks just like this. And so basically it looked like it had windows. It looked like some sort of advanced computer interface. And then as I was doing it, I said, well, why pretend that these are windows that do things? These are buttons that you would press because, you just want to press them and then you realize, okay, it's a static image. So why make a static image when the very thing I'm using to create this could also take it a step further? So initially, when I gave it some interactivity, uh, these windows moved. And that was about it. And I also had like a window that would go over a section to reveal something. But it was very rudimentary. It didn't really do anything. Uh, and then as time went on, I said, let me add more things and let me take what I like about video games because I'm a gamer and add that to this, things that I like seeing in video games, things that have influenced me since the 1970s all the way till now. And of course, going into science fiction, I have a background in biology, so the science part of it, the science fiction part of it, the gamer part of it, and also just the you know thinking like a futurist of saying, hey, this this is something that does something, and maybe we have something like it now, but what would it be like in the future once you had all the bugs worked out? So the images here are actually part of a bigger project that I made that technically started um, probably around, I'd have to check because I think I wrote it. I actually did write it down somewhere online. It was around 1986 when I got chicken pox. Actually, I was about 16 years old, and I had nothing else to do but scratch a lot. And I came up with this world um, about these microscopic creatures. And at the time, the stuff that was really hot in kids' toys was things like there was a cartoon that Hasbro made called the Inhumanoids, and these were like these creatures that lived deep in the earth that at some point came to the surface, and then people realized that these guys were sort of like the embodiment of um, of various things that affect life. Like they had a guy decompose. They were almost like gods in a way, or maybe they would have been worshipped as gods at some point. But basically, it had to do with at the time it was toys that were like because toy makers are always like, what's hot this year? What's going to be hot for the holidays or whatever. And at the time, we were in our disgusting phase, so it was kind of disgusting and stuff like that. And so I was sort of going along that lines of when I came up with the idea, I was like, oh, what if I had something that was sort of like the embodiment of something, whatever. But since I had chickenpox, I started thinking about my skin, and it just evolved over time to a point where um, it started off as something really simple, and then I went into college thinking that, hey, I like art, but let me do some science so that not only can I illustrate my work, but I could actually base my work in fact, and then fill it in with the rest with technobabble. I didn't mean for that to close. Technobabble. So that's where I'm at right now, where you're doing science fiction, but the thing that makes it, of course, science is part of it's real, and then the fiction is all the technobabble you might go in there. But there is a story about this. This basically depicts a scene of these microscopic creatures, and in this case, they live on the human body. And you'll notice right here, I have a ruler that says 25 nm, which stands for nanometers. And so these guys are around, when they're standing. Well, I guess they vary in size. Some are around like, 10 nanometers, 12. I think for now, the smallest things that we've seen are around 10 or 12 organisms, 10 or 12 nanometers. I think it's around 11 or 12 or something like that. It gets pretty small. They can get pretty small, but these guys are sort of they're actually multicellular. Well, they're sort of a hybrid. They're almost multicellular. They're sort of between multicellular and single cell organisms. And I actually talk about that. I literally talk about that in this. So let's get into this, what it's showing. So this depicts a scene. We are looking at this through a microscope called a nanoscope microscope. And basically imagine it has the magnification abilities of something along the lines of the electron microscope, but it's actually still using optics, which sometimes it doesn't kind of make sense, because the problem with using optics is once you get really, really, really small, the wavelength of light is actually too big to actually bounce off something that small, so we wouldn't even see it. That's why we use electrons. But electrons aren't optical microscopes. So you're bombarding something with these smaller particles, and when they bounce off of that, you're able to create an image map of what you're seeing. It also involves, looking at it in a vacuum, maybe sometimes cooling it down, but whatever you're looking at is dead. You're not really looking at it when it's alive. Although they have been trying to develop electron microscopes where you don't have to kill the thing, but still, and even almost seeing it in real time. But it's something that's really hard to do. So we came up with these nanosphere microscopes that actually use small beads that are very, very small. They're able to gather light in a very efficient way. So that's the idea. The light gathering abilities are really, really, really better than your normal one. But that's also where the science fiction comes in, because this thing is supposed to be the software that is running on a nanosphere microscope, and the type of computer that's being used with it is a quantum computer. So we have buttons here that do things. Like this one some of it is in Japanese on purpose. And I did that on purpose so that, one, it could be somewhat educational, and two, going with just how we work as humans. We can, we're good at figuring stuff out. Iconography has been around for thousands of years, and there's many things that we can understand without actually knowing what it says, but we can see that symbol. And once we know what that symbol does, we know that if we see that symbol again, this thing is going to happen, or this thing means that. That symbol could even be color. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a geometric shape or anything like that. It could be color, light, a smell. But in this case, we're dealing with iconography. So, and I went with some of the stuff that we're used to seeing, like here's a save button, project saved. And here in Japanese, it basically says, um, import, export, type stuff. That's basically what that says, the equivalent. And this is save. Some parts are in English and some parts are in English and Japanese. So some parts are either in pure Japanese, some parts are actually in all English, or they're both. Okay, so when you do that, it just says project saved. This is the scanner. It's actually scanning right now. That's why the button is sort of changed. That's to cancel. It says cannot cancel. Deep scan. Please wait. This says project save. You have file options. I made up a new term because the idea is this is actually what it's doing is it's scanning the this area that it's looking at, and it's creating a 3D reconstruction of what it's seeing so that eventually the person looking at this would be able to basically do a fly through of the area, to rotate it, zoom in with great detail, and look at these guys, and even see motion. So right now, but it's the idea is like it takes a while to gather the data, but it is really really like high fidelity and things like that. Um, and I did throw in the idea that these guys are actually colorless, so this is also a false coloring of what's being seen. So I actually have I have your typical formats, a TIFF, a bitmap, but I also have something called, it says a 3D IF. I basically am suggesting that at some point you would have like a generic 3D file format, 3D picture file format to be specific, not like a 3D modeling, but like you're taking a picture with a 3D camera and just be this generic, almost like a JPEG or something like that. And this is a 3D interchange format. So it basically suggests that it's almost like how a TIFF contains a lot of information, but this is a 3D file. So this is an import, but it says import error node offline, and then it says quantum node Cyrus. It says System 47, which is a joke. The System 47 thing that was a joke on in Star Trek Next Generation. They would put System 47 on a lot of the displays. Most of the time you couldn't see it. It was just a art department joke. The quantum node Cyrus, basically suggesting this thing is connecting to a quantum computer, network, but it's offline. The Cyrus part I got from when I used to use these things made by the digital corporation called deck writers, and they used a system called deck system, which is similar to Unix. Actually, we had that in my high school. They were like terminals, really. When you try to export, it says quantum node unavailable. It's just Q node. This is basically saying what you're seeing. It says auto tracking, that little I. It may not be obvious, but this little blue stack is actually moving, but not too much, because I didn't want someone to look at this and then all of a sudden that just becomes annoying after a while, almost like flashing or something like that. So I didn't. It's not too dramatic, but it actually is moving. And that basically is suggesting the level of detail that we're looking at. So we're almost at like 50% detail. And it looks pretty good detail. This right here, the green part, is information about the microscope's power output, the size of the image that's being presented. It's at 37 megapixels at 600 dpi. Its dimensions are 7,680 by 4,802. Um, Yeah, and this has to do with the power. Um, I put in there's some little Easter eggs in here. I said something about 10 nanometers, Wolf 359, um, nanosphere microscope, 3.4% laser power. Um, so when you hit this guy zooms out. When you click the plus, it zooms in. This is if you would move back and forth, but it's not available. This is a 3D rotation option, but you can't do it. When nothing is going on in this window, this indicator window, it just says no signal. That's being animated in real time. It's sort of a glitch effect I made. Um, this at the top says automatic spatial mapping, because that's what's going on right now. It's basically creating a yeah, it's creating a 3D reconstruction of what's going on. There's a little blinky light just to let you know that's going, just to draw your attention to it. Apparently, the network type it's doing is wireless, and there's just a generic local network IP address. At the bottom, right here, where it says the file type, like its path, it says slash root slash period workspace slash. Um, that's actually part of the path to the garbage file in the movie Hackers. So that's a little Easter egg for someone who's paying attention. If not, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so it's probably not obvious, but as you go over the image, the background or the lighting changes. It's very subtle. Or is it when you click on it? Is it when you click on it or when you? I'm not sure if it's when you click on it or when you hover over it. I think it's both. Actually, it's both. It's both. It's actually when you move over it. Yeah, there's the color gets desaturated or it gets saturated. Yeah, it varies. It's sort of but it's not too. I didn't want it to flicker where give somebody a seizure. This is a call out, and it's over this organism over here, and so that's just showing a more detailed picture of what that is. So I made all these. So these are 3D models that I made. This is a Blortis, and this is some creature it's riding on. Um, Did I You know what I may? I'm not sure if I define what those are. Okay. Here, right here, I'll just move this aside for a second. This is just suggesting where, or what might have happened in this little puddle or pool right here. It looks like it's a bathing Blortis right here. So these windows, these are Metagago. Actually, I have it printed on their screens, but if you hover over one of them, it just shows a different view of them maybe doing something at an earlier time. Looks like they're chasing a Blortis. And right here, that's sort of a close up of a Blortis, and then they're right behind it. And then opening up this window, we click on this. This is these are bacterial phages. This is the type is a very common kind. It's one of the bigger ones, a T4 bacterial phage. They don't all look like that. Some of them are circular. They come in different sizes and shapes. This is this call out. It just shows this view of two Blortises, these guys, from a slightly different view on the back, slightly different angle and closer up. I think I made that static. Yeah, I didn't want to have to move that. And right here at the top, it says active classification scan. So that's it for this part. So the idea is this window right here is where all the information that you need that is related to what you're looking at. It's giving you information. And that information will be updated over time. There's another view where if you minimize this window, you can move that out of the way or what. I'm just going to leave it right up there. This actually is what's going underneath. I didn't want to think of it as a desktop. It's more like the engine. So this area right here is where all the information gets collated. The raw information gets processed and it's collated. So the idea is it brings it all here, and then it slowly bubbles up to the top to the first window we were on. But this is sort of the engine of what's happening. And so there's various bits of information. There are things that are happening that give you an idea of what will happen on the top window. For example, the part where it does a 3D reconstruction so that you can actually rotate or fly through the 3D images. We have this is a little display node, and there's little like almost like traces on a circuit board that let you know, hey, this is connected to this in some way. It's related to that. Just like over here, this one is connected to this. That one's connected to that. So everything's sort of related. So how it works is you click on this, or actually you don't click on it, you kind of hover over it, and you see one of the metagagos. And so each one of these is an image. But if you go over it fast enough, you see it rotate. So it lets you see it, not quite video, but it lets you see like, oh. This is my way of making it so that you're actually looking at a whole bunch of pictures. It's basically like I could have made this like a slideshow, but instead of doing that, I made it more interesting, because it's an illustration. It's just, or should I say illustration? It's actually a whole bunch of illustrations that you're looking at. It's just, I said, let me just do it in a more creative way. And to get your motion, well, you got to manually do it. So this is my version of a flip book, but it's a digital flip book. So we're not doing like what we used to do with Flash, where it looks like a page turn animation. You're actually putting in the work. So you can either stop on one or just, you could leave the mouse here. It's just going to stay there. But once you take the mouse off, it disappears. I don't think, maybe one of these I have it where it holds, but I forgot. I'm not sure. Is it that one? Might be the last one. Oh, okay, it's that one. That's not the last one, but yeah. Where's it the last one? Yeah, it's the second to the last. It'll kind of hold on there, but it doesn't matter. If you click on this one, you see a view of one of the Hada. Their kingdom is called Hada in this case, and these creatures. This particular one, its species is called Bloris, and I see where I need to change that because that is coming through and that shouldn't be seen. I try to make it so that when things get shown, they don't, it still looks good. The composition is still good, but I see that some of my background is coming through to the foreground. I need to knock that back. I didn't notice that before. Not notice that. I must have changed something. So as you hover over the background, there are these blocks that pop up. So you don't normally see them. You see some of them. Some of them are static on the screen and others you don't see. Like you see these right here. And if you click on some of them, they do things, but others don't do things. So this is a QR code. And if you use any free scanner app, it doesn't go to a website. There's no actual real network connectivity to this. I did not want to do that just for people's privacy, and I don't want any things to get exploited or something like this. So this actually has no network connectivity. So this actually doesn't take you to a web page, but it does contain text. So if you actually scan this with the QR code scanner, it actually will be a big data dump. So that's what I did for these. I have some QR codes hidden in here along with pictures that actually give you information about this world I've created. But I'm not explicit as to which ones do what, but they are, but I do let you know that they are there, and I'll show you that in a second. Here's another animation that shows a spin of a Blortus. As you hover over it, I was inspired by the disc lights we would have on computers when the computer was thinking, when the disk was being accessed. You see these little disc lights. Even when you're not hovering over it, there are little blinkies that will flash on and off every now and then. The sequence of the lights isn't completely identical because some of them are more sensitive than others, and if you hover over a certain part, nothing will happen. So it actually does change a little bit. And here, once you go to the wider spaced out nodes, this part glows. So if you put your mouse over it, it actually glows a little bit. It's not too dramatic, but it's subtle. And then, also there's like little blinkies on these, like right here, little blinky thingies. So if you keep your mouse on this guy, another picture goes up. This one, it's not done yet, but this one, when you put the mouse over it, it changes, letting you know something's going to happen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that when you hover over buttons that actually do something, most of the time, it'll actually say something. You'll see some words that will indicate what it does. So that I totally will do that. I didn't want there to be static text because it just got too busy. Just keep it clean so it only pops up when you need it, a contextual type thing. Like here, this says start and this says stop rewind. Initially I had it so that it was always on, but I'm like, you know what, let me free it up because I wanted to keep a lot of this darker tone in here. I don't want to fill it all up. So this is being made in real time, these blinkies right here. It's actually Braille, but in no particular configuration. They're not spelling out anything. It's just to be like, blinky, blinky information. These blinks, so part of these actually do the animation and then the other ones don't, but they are animated. And when they're not on, you see some stuff going on underneath them, like these, almost like these elements that they're connected to. And they're going in a circle. I'm going to add some more stuff to it. I'm not done with this. This right here, I just put this here because like the actual animation, I always wanted the circles here, but the animation, I know that I want something there. It may not be exactly that, but I just wanted to say, oh, let me see if I had some animation there. See what that would. I'm like, I like it, but I don't necessarily like all of these. The only one I actually like out of all these is the one that's underneath here. I actually like this one. I like that one. This one right here. But I don't know. It's fast enough. It's not too annoying, and it's also bright. Because what I did was all these lights actually match the same color that's being placed on top of them. So that's why this one's actually one of the brightest ones. That's probably why it looks better. So anyway, if you click on this pops up. This is also going to be an animation, which is actually going to be really, really, really nice. I just haven't done it yet. It's all ready to go. I already have the frames. I just haven't made the buttons yet. So it's not really doing anything when you hover over it. But the actual artwork is already made. One thing I said, okay, if you hover over this, you see it becomes transparent. It serves two functions. It becomes transparent to let you know, hey, if you just kind of like this, right? If you do something, oh, I forgot about this picture. Here's another picture. So there's all kinds of nice artwork goodies. So this right here is a finished illustration. It's another one of a Blortis walking alongside another Hada. Think of Hada as the name of their kingdom, so it's like saying animal, another animal, even though they're not part of the animal kingdom. Um, Walking next to her, her name is Gates, or her type is called Gates. And there's another one. He's freaking out. There's some creatures crawling on this cave. This is actually one of my first illustrations that I made for this project, and then I decided to add more to it. This was fun to make. Very fun. So when you hover over it, it becomes transparent, but it also reveals like an internal, like almost like circuitry of what's going underneath, because you see this part, it kind of goes into this, and then you can see it. There's a little blinky right here. Totally inspired by a lot of the stuff I saw in Japan when I was a kid, like the Manzinger Z diagrams where you'd see like a cutaway view of the robot. That's pretty straight up what I'm inspired by. So when you actually click on it, it actually shows you a map of all those hidden buttons. It shows you where all the hidden buttons are. So you can either sort of cheat and reveal them that way, or you can just explore this thing and just start clicking on everything. That's the idea. It's sort of a little slight puzzle action going on here. So that in itself is almost like a game. You're just like, let's see what I can find. Yeah, that's what it is. Because as you hover it over, you'll be like, hey, what was that? That's some. Hey, that one doesn't do anything. There is one in here that actually. Yeah, there it is. It's actually a barcode. I started off doing a barcode. I was going to do barcodes, but actually barcodes, they can't contain as much information as a QR code actually. So QR codes can contain up to like I think 2,000 characters, and a barcode nowhere near that amount. But it's not designed to do that. And even if I could store a lot of information on a barcode, it'd be a very, very, literally a very, very long barcode. So that's not going to matter, because the more information you add to a barcode, the longer it gets. So yeah, QR code was the way to go, because I knew I wanted to do big text data dumps. And like I said, the data dumps are actually, that's what they are. It's exposition. It says so much about the world and things like that. So here's another one. When you hover over it, the little light bulb turns on. And when you click on it, it actually shows a diagram of, in this case, the microscope that we're using. This fictitious place is called the Hogenbaldt Center for Research. So it says Hogenbaldt CFR, which stands for Hogenbaldt Center for Research. And it says Technasis Incorporated, MXTR Microscope, which basically just says Monster Scope. Technasis, I guess, I'm saying I guess, and I made it up. It's the company that made it. So it's like a custom job that they made for this research facility. So these are just different views of the microscope. It's funny because this contains elements that I designed back in 2003, 2003, which is pretty funny. Like the idea for here is like you can detach this, and it's a screen with wireless capability. But I was thinking about that in back, the early 2000s, yeah, not knowing that we were starting to put cameras and things like that on microscopes. So maybe they were doing that before then. But yeah, I sometimes reinvent the wheel. And elements of this microscope, the basic structure like this, almost looks like a drill press, is actually something that somebody made. So um, I would say 90% of this, or 98% of this, is not BS. Yep, which is cool. Yeah. And if we go down here and click on where it says start, We're above it, it says personal log. So when we click on it, here's what we get. I'm an expert in biology and astronomy. I study the possibilities of extraterrestrial life and how it can live in various environments. Many times that involves observing life in extreme conditions on Earth in places that would be completely inhospitable to complex organisms like humans. Now, we've discovered a new form of life, not a microbe, a plant. We couldn't even call them animals. So we added a new kingdom to the tree of life. Jesus, that still feels weird to say out loud. Dr. Ikehara nicknamed them Hada. It's Japanese for skin. I entered it as Hada Kingdom in our taxonomy database. I think she'll really get a kick out of that. They appear to mostly live in our skin, and their connection to us is largely unknown. Force quantum Hall dating tells us they're ancient, setting them back to around 4.4 billion years. Perhaps a shadow offshoot, a bridge between single cell to what eventually became multicellular organisms, just like us, humans. All right. So that's one of the personal logs. I might add a few more. Um, I have an idea, or at least one more. Not too many, because I wanted this to be more visual than audio, but I thought was cool to have it. There's a game that I play where they actually have audio recordings of various things, and they even have picture. They have pictures, video, audio recordings, but I think it's probably more audio transmissions of things about the characters, maybe what they were doing or their relatives or things like that. So I want to add something else to this that will give you a better idea about the world and the person, like the sort of the scientist. In this case, that's my voice, and I'm playing the part of one of the researchers that has they just basically discovered these things, a new form of life that happens to live on the human body, and they don't know exactly what their connection is. This they know that they're connected to us, and but they don't know how far down that goes. Like how far does that go? And they seem to be a bridge between um, unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. Yeah, because they kind of contain traits. It's sort of like it's like they're they're small, and the idea that you would have this a multicellular organism that is that it has traits of multicellular organisms, but also viruses, and it's this small. It's just weird, and you're like, but they're intelligent too. You know what I mean? Like what do they have? Do they have something equivalent to a brain? I've been looking at all this stuff. I was thinking maybe they have something that's kind of like a notochord, which is sort of like something that we have that a lot of organisms have that eventually turns into a brain. Part of it becomes the brain, and the other part becomes part of your brain stem. You know, that's protected by your spinal. It's the spinal cord. It's the spinal cord, but it's called a notochord. Um, uh, which something microscopic having a notochord that would make that thing a super genius. You know, because it's not a brain, but it's good enough for something like that. That's one of those things where it's like intelligence is sort of relative. You know, like you could be the smartest ant. You know, but yeah, that's let's see if there's anything. There is some other things. Let's see. There's one up here. This one turns green. So if you click on this one, it actually brings up a cross-sectional view of the skin. And here it says it's labeled epidermis, dermis, subcutaneous layer. And then there's a sort of a "you are here" type marker, which is basically indicating what what we're looking at is in this area. So these guys are actually living. This picture was taken um, on the surface of the skin in that area. That could be anywhere, any section. That could be That could be on the butt, the hand, whatever, face, whatever. Um, let's see. There's a call out. There's some other stuff that's like hidden that I just want people to that's actually says Integument. That's the name of this project. It's also it's the name of the world Integument, which is means skin, the integumentary system, the largest organ on our bodies, actually. Hada is Japanese for skin. That's why I made that their name, their kingdom name. Let's see. Yeah, there's I don't think that does anything, but there's some more little Easter eggs. There is a hidden one where it doesn't really indicate that it's there. Where are you? Oh, there it is. This is one of my drawings that I made of these guys. Um, Sort of did it anime style with the simplified colors and shadows. This is why decided to do them in 3D because I said, hey, I can add a lot of detail, but I only have to do it once. You know what I mean? And then I can pose them because these models, the way I made them, they're totally fully posable. Um, so I used so basically it's kind of like I approached it almost like I was making a movie or a video game. I rigged them up and so that I could pose them how I saw fit. And even here you can see the individual parts that make them up, and they're pretty detailed actually. But like I said, I can just do it once, and then I don't have to worry about doing it again. So it's unlike a drawing, um, it'll always have that level of detail, and I can change the lighting. The good thing about it, depending on the lighting, you'll see either more or less detail. Like I said, like here's one that's like you can see it a little bit better. But the cool thing about it, I like to noodle things to death. So if you zoomed into one of these, you're going to see a crap ton of detail to the point where I can take a section from any of these characters and actually use it as a background, which I think that might be what a lot of this is anyway. A lot of the background is actually probably an enlarged version of a section from one of these guys' skins. Because sometimes when you're up close, you you're too close in your modeling and then you start getting into you get lost in the details, and that's usually what I do. Then I'm like, okay, no one's gonna see that, or will they? Yeah, like I could take her foot, turn it sideways and make that into a background, you know what I mean? Like it's yeah, it's like that. I knew I was going to be doing stuff like that, so that's I guess I like to believe that's why I do things like that. So I'm like, it'll come in handy. Let's see. I don't think that does. Yeah. So that's pretty much it so far. I'm not done. Oh, wait. Here's another one. Oh, there's one. This one was using another technique early on when I was trying to finalize how to do it. But the idea is when I do certain things, I have to be able to say, okay, this wasn't a fluke. Let me do this and be able to repeat it. So even if I say change her pose and change the angle and even change the lighting, it's still going to look like the same style. So my final style is this right here. It's this because this one it doesn't even matter what I do, it's still going to look like this no matter what. And so I have a total workflow that literally written down. um, uh, so even if I forget, it's written down. So it's and it works every time. So it's good to know that because then you know what to expect. There's no surprises, and that way I can actually say how long something would one of these pictures would take to make. I even rendering it, I know how long it needs to render. Like I don't have to render it that long. Um, Relatively speaking, I can basically I can render it for a given amount of time to get the result that I need. So even if say the render was like say 2 hours or something like that, I still know like, okay, that's going to take 2 hours, and then I do this and that to it, and then you know what I mean. So there's and that's really good to know because eventually you're gonna get it. I think I'm trying to figure out if I have any other like this is a big deal, that's a big deal. This is a big deal. This is a big. I think there's some little things in here, but I'm trying to look at the big sort of landmarks. Uh, Even when I'm making it, even when I'm testing stuff out, I'm like, hey, do I have anything here? Because I need to bring some of this down here a little bit, just a little bit more, not too much more. I might have some stuff going in right here too, but I'll have to see. Because this is a situation where you have to kind of make it and then then look at it, then think about it, and let it gel in your head for a while, then come back to it because yeah. But what I am trying to do is when these things are like if you hover over this, there's a connection that forms, like it goes straight down there. Like that, it's totally planned out. That's coming through. I didn't see that before. That's weird. Um yeah, that's weird. That shouldn't be like that. That should not be poking through. It should not be poking through. I'll have to check out. I have to see why that's doing that. Um, Hold on, let me see. That doesn't come through? That does not make any kind of sense. That doesn't make sense. It's weird because when I do this, I actually these things are all on like basically like different layers, and I have to keep track of all these layers, and there are a lot of layers to this. It's a few hundred layers, various layers, even programmatically. So this is made in processing, actually. It's sort of a IDE that's based in Java, so it's basically Java. Um, yeah, and yeah, it's a cross-platform, open source type thing. So yeah, right now I'm keeping it for Windows because when I run it on Mac OS, it is some things don't the actual some of the stuff actually looks better. It looks really 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 nice. At least on my computer, one of my Macs, it looks freaking beautiful. Um, but some of the animation is so slow. It might be a Java thing or something like that. I don't know, but I'm probably I don't feel like trying to figure that out because I've been working on this for about 6 months, and I don't want to be in like creative development hell, because I'm basically gonna have to make a totally different application for if I do it for the Mac. And right now, I really don't feel like doing that. I want to get this thing out. So right now, I'm just gonna say it's Windows only. I'm a Mac guy, but I'm also a Windows guy. I'm also Linux. I'm gonna see how it works on Linux, but I'm not gonna give this to somebody who's on a Mac and be like, here you go, in in the state that I know it'll be in. It'd be like unusable. Um, yeah, it's like it's really bad. Uh, anyway, but that's it for now. There's some stuff that can't be seen right now because of the way I'm recording this, but there's actually a lot more that's being seen. I even have animations going on in the actual window that this is in. Something I don't see anybody do, which I'm wondering why no one does that. It is hard to do, but I did it, so I'm just trying to figure out like why don't people have like little animation and information going on in the actual window borders. It reminds me of the little cartoons that would be on the sides of the pages in Mad Magazine. It's like space they weren't using. That's another thing. It's like you have the window of an application and it says, it says what it is, but you can actually put animation in there. I'm just trying to figure out like, why am no, I've actually never seen anyone do that. It's like, why am I the only one that does it? That's why I want to kind of keep it in. It actually might be the thing that's screwing up the Mac, but I'm not sure. Even though it works, so I'm not sure. But that's it for now. It's not quite done yet, but it is it is what I have right now. Oh, yeah. Matane.